KSI vs Dillon Danis is only a couple of weeks away, and my interest has died right down for it. Don't get me wrong, I'll probably tune in or at least catch a replay of the events, but the fight itself isn't that exciting, and the build-up has been lackluster surprisingly. Now I think that Dillon Danis is perfect for Misfits. The guy can be legitimately entertaining and has some good lines in press conferences, so if they did some sort of Misfits MMA event with him headlining, I'd actually watch. That being said, this fight has felt like a bit of a mismatch, and for someone who's done boxing for 7 years, KSI has only made noticeable opponent jumps twice in his career. Logan Paul was a step up from Joe Weller, and then in 2023, KSI took on a big test with Tommy Fury. But that's about it. I understand that he needed to get rid of ring rust when he fought Swarms and Pineda, but the quality of opponents hasn't got much better since. I also get that after Tommy Fury, KSI needed to find a tune-up fight, and while Dillon Danis serves as a decent one, it's still a little disappointing. KSI and Jake Paul both suffer from this problem. For their skill level and experience in the sport, they're not fighting comparable opposition, and we've seen dwindling pay-per-view numbers as a result. When KSI vs Dillon Danis was announced, fans kinda said the same thing. The consensus was that the fight was going to have a great, fun build-up with Dillon talking shit, but when we get down to it, it's gonna be an awful contest, and I don't disagree. If KSI comes in with that same exact karate bouncing style like in the Tommy Fury fight, himself and Dillon will naturally just clinch and clinch again until the final bell. On the other hand, if Dillon's output is low and he lets KSI rush in and get his shots off, then I can see a boring decision win for KSI. When the press conference occurred a few weeks ago, I initially thought there was going to be some decent back and forth, but instead it was just cringe, more than other YouTube boxing press conferences. And more importantly, it was boring. No chemistry whatsoever. It's almost like they were both thinking, why am I fighting this guy? There's no storyline, there's no real connection, bad blood, it's just a bit forced. Dillon said that there's stipulations in the contract to where he can't say certain things about KSI, I assume bringing up his personal life and his loved ones in the build-up. That's fair enough, and while I think Dillon is kind of using it as a crutch, the press conference was still boring as. Dillon had some funny one-liners, but fuck, for a YouTuber, KSI can't talk for shit. When Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, two professional boxers who get their heads punched in for a living, can make more coherent points and come up with wittier insults than a guy who's been talking to a camera for 15 years and a guy who grew up around Conor fucking McGregor, then Jesus Christ, influencer boxing is doomed. While YouTube boxing will always have a place in the sport probably, it's definitely lost a lot of its initial appeal, for two main reasons. Number 1, traditional boxing has become way better thanks to Saudi backing recently. We're getting all the best fights, and it feels like there are more and more entertaining pro fighters in, and more importantly, outside of the ring. This dampens the crossover boxing side of things, because YouTubers are supposed to be the ones bringing in all the eyeballs by acting loud and bombastic, but they're just not anymore. As they continue to train in the sport, they're becoming duller to listen to. I mean, King Kenny and Anisong Gibbs sound like fucking Anthony Joshua, man, and it's so jarring. Even with KSI, during this last press conference, he basically copied Eubank Jr. with the whole pancake slap he did. Now that's fucking desperate. A few years ago, I would have said that traditional boxers are too boring outside the ring, and they gotta take a page out of the influencer's book and become more engaging. Nowadays, it's the other way round, and it's getting embarrassing. I mean, Big Bang Zhang saying that he's going to bang his opponent, no Diddy, is unironically more entertaining than anything a crossover boxer has said for years. Besides just for press conferences and mandatory pre-fight build-up, these influencer boxers don't promote on their own socials anymore and hardly make content. I get they found a passion for boxing, that's fantastic, and it's important to train hard for these fights. They are under professional rules after all, but also, don't forget why you're on the Misfits stage to begin with. Dillon Danis said it best actually when promoting the Logan fight. He said something to the effect of, "I'm a jiu-jitsu guy and you're a YouTuber. We can't promote this fight on the back of our novice boxing skills, so we need a different angle." I don't know if that justifies him going after Logan Paul's wife, I genuinely don't care either way, but the point itself is pretty valid and every single Misfits fighter should take note. Number 2, there's a lack of talent with big names. On each Misfits show, there's maybe 1 or 2 pretty sizable names, but then the card is filled with either ex-Love Island stars or just TikTokers with okay-ish numbers on social media with no real appeal or draw outside of that. Another fellow boxing channel and fellow Australian, Cloister, once said that YouTube boxing has more or less turned into early 2000s celebrity boxing, where washed up names fight and try to earn back their 15 minutes of fame pretty much. YouTube boxing used to be the biggest of the biggest names going head to head, but that's not really the case anymore outside of KSI and Jake Paul. People are using Misfits boxing to try to get a profile now, rather than it being influencers with huge profiles putting on a boxing event to try to expand their empire. That's why now I'm kind of interested in Misfits having a pro league and seeing the talented prospects come out of that endeavor. Sure, they might not have a bunch of Instagram followers, but at least they'll have the skill to compensate. Anyway, I hope the promotion for KSI vs Dillon Danis picks up, because at the moment, this fight feels quite pointless. Win or lose though, I hope Dillon Danis continues to get involved with Misfits. I think Mams and DAZN would be foolish to let him go. Yes, his boxing skills might not be up to par, but book him on an MMA show when they introduce Misfits MMA, or just throw him in there with a subpar boxer and let him develop. As for KSI, I don't care if it's his coaches or his management calling the shots, but please, somebody needs to give this man proper boxing competition to fight. I'm sick of KSI and Jake Paul criticizing each other's opponent choices when they really do the same shit. And although I'm complaining about these two influencers, it's just because I'm invested in the space. I see the potential, and I want the YouTube boxing scene to be as healthy as possible. At this point, it's stagnating, and bouts like KSI vs Dillon Danis aren't helping and are certainly not moving the needle. KSI and Dillon Danis, paired with the right dance partners, can pull off fantastic promotion and put on fun events. I mean, the Prime card is proof of that, but fighting each other, I don't see too much hype. I'll catch you down the road.